He showed us that neither death nor disease can conquer love. The story of Ronald Reagan is quintessentially American. Ronald Wilson Reagan was born at 4:16 a.m. in the small town of Tampico, Illinois, on February 6, 1911, in the front bedroom of the 5-room apartment his family shared above the First National Bank on Main Street. Like most homes at the time, it had no running water or flush toilet. His father, John Edward Jack Reagan, worked at the H.C. Pitney General Store right across the street. Ronald was delivered by Dr. Harry Terry, stranded in Tampico by a snowstorm, aided by a midwife. Even with their help, the birth of the 10-pound baby proved difficult. Terry told Reagan's tiny mother, Nellie Wilson Reagan, that he should be her last child, and she heeded that advice. Nellie wanted to name the boy Donald, but chose Ronald after her sister had named her son Donald some time earlier. Reagan's older brother, John Neal, was 2.5 years old when Ronald was born. Neal, who wanted a sister, refused at first to look at his new brother. When Jack Reagan first saw his infant son, he said, "He looks like a fat little Dutchman, but who knows, he might grow up to be president someday." For a good portion of his life, that name stuck with Reagan. Jack Reagan, the 27-year-old orphaned son of Irish immigrants, had married 21-year-old Nellie Clyde Wilson 7 years earlier, in 1904, in Fulton, Illinois, the Mississippi River town where they both lived. Reagan stood 5 feet 10 inches, had broad shoulders, dark hair, and a muscular build. He was handsome, charming, and fancied himself a gentleman, despite his ungentlemanly upbringing and grade school education. He favored bright white shirts with starched collars and stylish shoes. Nellie Reagan was a brittle woman with auburn hair, a strong jaw, and a thin mouth that rarely broke into a smile. She was a seamstress, although in the early years of their marriage, Jack made enough money to enable her not to work. The Reagan family moved to Tampico, population 820, on March 23, 1906. After 8 years in the dry goods business, Jack got a job at the Pitney store as its senior salesman of clothes and shoes. He had trained as a pragmaticist, an X-ray fitting expert, and his ambition was to own the largest and most successful shoe store in Illinois outside Chicago. Like a lot of Americans whose roots were in the 19th century frontier, Ronald Reagan later wrote, he was restless, always ready to pull up stakes and move on in search of a better life for himself and his family. Nellie's ambitions were for her sons. "While my father had dreams of making something of himself," Reagan later said, "she had a drive to help my brother and me make something of ourselves." Jack became a fixture in Tampico, 120 miles west of Chicago, holding a number of volunteer posts: assistant fire chief, baseball team manager, councilman, and finance chairman of St. Mary's Church, though he seldom attended Mass. He was quick to laugh and popular with neighbors and customers. Easygoing and tolerant, he had an Irish gift of gab. On warm days, he often stood on the sidewalk outside the store and told stories to people passing by. Ronald Reagan often described his father as the best storyteller he ever knew, and the man who taught him the art. But stories were just part of Jack's legacy. As a child, his older brother gave him a taste of corn whiskey, and he soon developed a dependence on alcohol. In 1907, 4 years before Ronald Reagan was born, Tampico declared itself dry, and Jack began drinking in secret and taking thinly veiled buying trips to Chicago to cover up his multi-day binges. As Jack turned to drink, Nellie embraced religion. In 1910, she was baptized by a minister of the First Christian Church in the chilly waters of the Hennepin Canal just outside Tampico. She often led Sunday school services and